Hello, everybody. This is Brandon with expeditiousfool.com, putting mindfulness in motion. Also, Fellowship of Universal Truth, Yogic Ministries founder. And today I want to talk about something Kundalini or awakening or crazy. See, a lot of times it can be misunderstood in many different ways. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. It's definitely something I experience a lot in my life, having gone through Kundalini awakening, several different levels of that, being from where I'm from. Not too many people are used to that over here in the West. And it's definitely something that even when you reach that, and many people have throughout the past, and many people in the West, you haven't heard of really great thinkers or really great spiritual advancements, because most of them have been locked away as they've gained these understandings because of the West's understanding of that. So let me break it down a little bit. When you go through that, everything that is considered normal in society, it's based off of a main factor, that you are your body and you are your mind. Kundalini awakening brings you to the realistic truth, as real as it can be, realer than any of the tangible, real as it feels, 100%. It brings you to the awareness that that's not the truth. So that's why people for ages and ages and ages that have reached these have been persecuted. They've been persecuted even by like-minded folks, spiritual community. Jesus, he was found guilty of heresy, right? No, he had a Kundalini awakening. He was also a yogi. He was trying to teach others how to do so. They were saying that it was complete heresy. They were, that's calling him a con man, saying that he was God or the Son of God, etc. So they crucified him, right? This has happened throughout the ages with many, many different people, especially here in the West. Here in the West, if it doesn't fit the economic view, which is how all of society is made, all family structures are made, the American dream, if it doesn't fit that, they call it crazy. It's wild, it's weird, right? And even your family and friends don't understand. People that are in spiritual community, they don't necessarily understand, because until you can get to the understanding of transcending the body and mind, you're considered crazy by those other folks. The reason being is because you do think differently, because the way that society is set up, and I could say West, but now it's pretty much worldwide, the way that society is set up is not in true reality, which is transcendence of the body and mind. It's beyond that. It's the consciousness level, the next step. Now, everybody that was close to these prophets, these mystics, these saints, these seers, they would tell you that even though they may have that crazed look in their eye, that wildness about them, that crazy wisdom, it's called a lot of times, they are very, very clear. They're very, very disciplined and very, very focused. But when you have a prophetic understanding, that's the thing. You're considered a prophet because not everyone can see that way. Truthfully, all of the spiritual texts that are written from a prophetic understanding, which is why when you try and analyze it logically, you start to go, oh, this stuff's wild. These creatures didn't exist. Of course they didn't exist. That's not what it's saying. It's telling you a story. It's telling you poetry. But you have to understand it from that perspective, from that awakened perspective, and not the standard woke folk that's trendy right now. No, a true awakening, which is also why, I receive a lot of flack from the woke folk, just as well as the serious religious folk, as well as the common normal folks. The reason being is because when you go through a Kundalini awakening, especially here in the West, the way that you operate, the way that you have true devotion and faith to no matter what it is that happens, people can't understand that. It's the reason why they say that an enlightened individual can only be recognized by other enlightened individuals. It's the same exact thing. Now, I don't like to use the term enlightenment. I like to use samadhi, experience, nirvana, Kundalini awakening, things like this, because enlightened means there's a dark side. Truthfully, it's all the same, folks. It's all part of the process. To help me explain this to you about some of the past, I'm going to read from Kundalini Tantra. This is a wonderful, wonderful book, but this is under Kundalini and Madness, Chapter 9, A Great Misunderstanding. Mystics throughout the ages have been persecuted for their experiences, which to normal mundane consciousness are insanity, yet to the sage are ecstasy. Socrates was poisoned because he did not behave normally. Christ was crucified on the cross because his teachings were not understood. Al-Hallaj, the Sufi saint, was skinned alive because he spoke the truth without fear of society. Joan of Arc and the witches of Salem were burned at the stake, as were many others. All have been persecuted and harassed by the mundane populace for their vision, which arose as a result of their inner work. Due to this lack of understanding, many esoteric doctrines were hidden from the majority of people. And that's the thing. When you go through this Kundalini awakening, you're no longer afraid to speak your voice. You're no longer afraid to speak to society the truth, which does sound weird. And truthfully, when you go through it, it is absolute. There is a one path. And all of these people that have found it have followed this same path. Many variations of this path, but it's still the same path. And so that's why all of them come through and they're like, this is the truth. And when you say that, people are like, well, you know, that sounds judgy and what have you. And there are people that judge. Those are not true devotees. Somebody with Kundalini awakening, they're not judging you. They're just saying there is a truth. There is a way. And they're privy to it, so they're trying to share it with the world. And they don't care about the punishment. They don't care about how people look at them. And this is also the reason why a lot of people in their spiritual process, the ones that are journeying on their spiritual journey, they have a problem when they get to a certain level and they can't transcend that anxieties. They can't transcend those depressions. They can't transcend those angers, those frustrations, because it requires a leap of faith after a certain point of work. And that leap of faith takes you into God's grace, source's grace, however you want to define it, doesn't matter. But through that is where the Kundalini awakening can happen. You can do all the processes in the world, but if you don't understand karma yoga, you can't quite get there. You know, doing things without expecting the result, without caring about the result, because it's all up to God. It's all in God's hands. The fruits, the rewards, the losses, they're all God's. So this is a hard thing to understand for most folks. And if you get to that level, your reward is you're going to be different. No wonder a lot of people steer away from it. You're going to be ostracized. You're going to be ostracized by both the people that you once knew, as well as new folks who think that you might be part of them and things of that nature, because very few people go the full length. So that's why it's considered crazy a lot of times. It does not match up with your standard 3D economy at all. Now, throughout the past couple years, there are more people getting closer to it, but that also means there's a whole lot of people with misunderstandings. There's a whole lot of people that don't go the full length. They go somewhat. And then those individuals judge somebody that has gone the full length. Because when you have, the truth is very, very clear. And when you start telling people that, then they're like, oh, well, this guy thinks he knows. No. Anybody that actually has went through a full Kundalini awakening, they do know, because it all opens up to you. And it's never in a place of arrogance that they're coming from. It's also not a place of insanity that they're coming from. It's from a place of clarity. And I hope that watching this, if you know anybody that seems a little bit different, seems a little bit odd, seems a little bit off as far as their view sets, but you can see how disciplined and determined they are, that you don't just go off labeling them as crazy or liars or wacky or any of the words. And definitely, don't go old barbaric style and go crucifying them, anything like that. And we can do so today in modern ways with words and things like that. There's no need to do that. So I hope that this video brings more understanding, whether you're on the Kundalini awakening journey yourself or you're interacting with somebody that might be on the journey. They may act differently than they did before. They will act differently than before. That's the entire point, folks. All right. Namaskaram.